Hello, 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 and welcome in to Bear With Us on the Bear Claw Media Podcast. I am Chris Bolin, joined as always by Ben Schleiger. Ben, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, doing good. It's exciting. We're gonna get through our position breakdown from spring, kind of be like, this is what we saw from spring. This is what we think of these guys. This is what we hope to see in fall. We're gonna start off spicy. We're starting with quarterbacks. A lot of opinions here, but at the end of the day, I think we're pretty settled on who's starting, don't you, Chris?
Yeah, and I think this is another one where we are going to argue a bunch and then come to the same conclusion, whether we like that conclusion to varying degrees, I think. But as always, if you like what we do, please, please, please like, subscribe, comment. Tell your mom to like, subscribe, and comment. And if you don't like what we're doing, Ben's DMs are always open. That is the Bear Claw Media complaint department right there.
Yeah,
Take it
just
up with
like
the guy in the
in that
UNC
movie
hat.
where with Brad Pitt, shoot that guy. Yeah, shoot this guy.
but quarterbacks, this obviously the I don't want to say the downfall, but starting five quarterbacks is that's never typically a recipe for success. So, but there is reason to be hopeful this year, I'd say. The starter, who was supposed to be the guy last year, is coming back. We have some young talent, lots of transfer, like JUCO kind of portal guys, which feels a little bit weird. I don't know. It felt like there was a big influx of quarterbacks, and I don't know exactly how that came to be. But I think we're starting to get at least a fair idea of the room coming out of that spring game, and it only makes sense to start at the top. Peter Costelli is going to be the guy. I've been more of a Costelli guy probably since I first saw him throw a ball than you have been, but he's not necessarily your style, but I do think he's very talented and has a very high ceiling in certain situations.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cut and dry from what the coaches have showed us and what we've seen on the field. Costelli is structurally and physically going to be the starting quarterback. Um, I think there will probably be some shenanigans throughout the season as there's different packages and different whatnot that's shown throughout there with like running quarterback packages. You know, Hank is listed as a quarterback. We all know it to be true. Due to his injury last year, throwing is not in his best interest. So more than likely, that's not going to be something that's used. But at the same time, like coach has not rolled out any like wildcat type plays where he just takes a direct snap. I think that's kind of obvious. When he's 6'6", 240, that is still a valuable sized athlete to be getting a direct snap. Yeah, Costelli's good, and I think he's improved a lot. I think he's matured in his passing and whatnot. I think his throws, especially to the corners and to the sidelines, are more crisp. I think one of your favorite ones is when he rolls out and throws a dart on an out route when he's scrambling. I do have to say he is very good at that. Someone else on the team said that he is the best one at throwing that particular route. So Chris will live and die by that now that certain
Wait,
player said that.
way to say it as unemphatically as you possibly could to just take all the wind out of my sails when I hit you with that later. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Put a little oxygen in that balloon instead of helium. So you're welcome. You're welcome. You still have the balloon, but it might be a little saggy. But yeah, honestly, he does that route very well. Still kind of worried about the panic factor. Every quarterback panics, but it's just he gets incredibly tunnel vision, even when it's just like us of like, okay, I'm either gonna throw like a laser that has like 120% strength behind it, or I'm gonna run for my life. And I get worried when he runs for his life because not saying he's fragile, but he has had a couple leg concerns in the past. Last season, he tried to come back way too early. He's just one of those gritty, just wants to be on the field type athletes, a lot like Hank and a lot like Jacob Nip that we had in the past. It's just We don't need to get to the point where we literally have another Jacob Nip where it's like, okay, he's strung together with screws and plates and he'll set off a metal detector from about 5 feet away. We don't need that. So let's save him from going down as much of a hard worker path as Nip did. But I think by and large he's the most equipped. I do think it is a little bit cherry picked from the coaches. I think they just have put all of their eggs in the Costelli basket. Gibson, the LSU transfer, which I don't know. I'm not quite sure what LSU has seen in him. I think
Well, they saw him as a wide receiver. That's why they moved him to wide receiver.
Well, that's fantastic. Maybe he should play wide receiver for us.
I mean, we could probably use the help there too, if we're being honest.
That's true. I just haven't seen enough to say that he's going to be a Kyle Sloter of, transition to quarterback and just absolutely killing the game. He is incredibly fast, and even though it doesn't list a size on here, he looks like a decent sized guy. Running plays, especially when those are scripted, I think he's going to do very well at that. Passing wise, I think everybody behind Costelli, except for one, had accuracy issues. I don't think we really got to see enough of some of the backups, and because spring is only 90 minutes to 2 hours, so it was tough to judge just based off of that. And practice reps when you're throwing on 7-7, that's great, but we only got so many live reps. I think it's a 1. There is no 1A, no 1B, and then there's a lot of 2. I don't know. You could say 2 in the letter grade, 3 in the letter grades. I think anything beyond Costelli gets murky. So my biggest hope is that Costelli is healthy and continues on. If not, from what I saw in spring, I prefer Caden Box just because he has a very crisp, clean throwing motion. He had the most efficient and effective drive outside of Costelli. Everybody else had either a turnover or definitely some just errant errors. It was like, oh god, like when Luth about Josh Allen to the ball into the stands, that was a concerning first throw. Might have been jitters, but like, oh boy, that was a tough one to see right off the bat. So I think Box is my preferred number 2, but I think the coaches are going to lean towards Gibson because of his legs.
Yeah, and that's the episode. You just about covered it, I'd say. No, but I agree. Overall, actually, I agree with about everything you said. I just see it more optimistically. I really like Costelli. I believe what the observation was throws the best ball on the run of anybody he's ever seen, not just that particular route, sir. But I think he does struggle in the pocket, and I seem to be the only one who's not as worried about that. Because everybody else I've heard has been like, they need to have Costelli throw from the pocket more. And I feel like actually quite the opposite. I think they should move the pocket, get him out on little bootlegs, little scrambles, play to his strengths, get him easy completions. There were no easy completions last year. And part of that was just because of other circumstances where you have a quarterback with a week to prep. And then after that, you have a team that saw basically all you're going to do with, so I think if Costelli can stay healthy, they can really expand that playbook and get him out on the move, get him in those spots that he's really comfortable, because just especially going to his left, like he makes throws that I don't want to say baffle me, but it's crazy. Like I don't think an FCS quarterback of a 1-11 team shouldn't be able to make those throws typically. And it's just whether or not he gets the opportunities, whether the offense moves the ball well enough for him to kind of, get into a rhythm, whether he stays healthy. But another thing, I think small sample size, I think the team likes him. Like, I think maybe I'm reading too much into to a couple things, but I think he has the support of the guys in the locker room, and I think they respect him. I don't know if it's arm talent, if it's something else he brings. I do think he kind of has like a good Q rating in the locker room, which I think matters. And something I kind of see the room the same way you do. I think Gibson is going to be the number 2 because I think he can come in, and I think he's just a better version of that Hank Gibbs like wildcat quarterback, because I think he throws the ball a little better. It wasn't anything like groundbreaking, but he could get like a crossing route on time with enough arm strength to complete it, and I think that's almost enough of a threat of the throw if you're like in that position. But I also agree. I think it makes sense to have Gibson as the backup because he plays very similar to Costelli. He doesn't have the arm. I don't think he has like the intangibles necessarily. Might be a better athlete, but Costelli's pretty twitchy from what I hear at least. But I think if Costelli goes down for like similar to something that happened last year, I think it would just make the most sense to give the keys to Caden. Like, he has the highest ceiling of any of the other guys. We can talk about Luth. I was fairly impressed by Gibson. I was not impressed by Luth. So there wasn't like a drastic difference between the two, but I think Gibson did show he was the better of the two. I don't know if you agree with that. But Caden feels like he's just kind of in his own thing over here, because he's so different than any other quarterback on the roster. He's that pocket passer, and it's a tough situation because there is some level of, you probably should have the backup play kind of like your starter, so you don't have to completely switch things over. And then but if it became a thing where he's going to start for 4 or 5 weeks, I think it would make sense because he's very talented, and I think if he doesn't really get an opportunity, he's probably not going to be at UNC for much longer. And I don't think it's crazy that we would see him drop down to a JUCO and then bounce back to an FCS program, even an FBS program. But it's always a little tougher to tell when you get into that. It's an eye of the beholder thing.
Yeah, I mean, with our luck, he drops down to College of Sequoias, wins whatever their district or conference championship is, and then comes back at Portland State and murders us, has an undefeated season, and wins a national championship.
Well, Portland State's never going undefeated.
Yeah, they were top 5 once, baby. It might have been in recruiting, but they were top 5 once. Yeah, Costelli is pretty cut and dry. I think it's talent-wise, I think he is number 1. But I think he's also been cherry-picked to be number 1. So I think it was kind of interesting during recruiting and signing season. We were told consistently is like, oh, yep, like Costelli's number 1. Or like all these quarterbacks are coming in, but they're all coming in with the assumption Costelli's number 1. And we kind of thought like, ugh, that seems like such a silly statement. Like, you're bringing in all these quarterbacks. It's pretty obvious that like you don't give a shit about this guy. But everything to the contrary. Like, it seems like he is a very well set up and manicured to be the starter. So hopefully that pays off. Hopefully we have a polished leader who's, going to attack the passing game and whatnot. I don't mind when he improvises. I don't like when he scrambles. He has fantastic vision of the field the whole time he's doing that, but he gets his peripherals get a little blind. There's a couple times we even saw in the spring game where I was like, oh man, like if that was an Eastern Washington edge defender, he would have gotten his head ripped off. He would have gotten ear holed from the side, and that would not be good. So I need Costelli to be a little bit more field aware if he's going to do the bootleg rollout passes coverage type thing. Again, he throws very nice passes when he does that, but I also don't want to see him ragdolled. So just a personal thing there.
He does have like I don't want to say a knack, but he takes shots. Like, he takes some big hits, particularly the Eastern Washington when he got kind of launched over that snowbank. but I think that's just the type of player he is. I agree. I don't want him to get hurt, but I think you have to just kind of play your style. And if he's the best guy and that's what he's best at, like I feel like there's things you can do to try to take some of those shots off him. And they're like, we kind of understand he's going to take a couple pops here. So let's get some of these design runs to Gibson, take a few hits off of Costelli in that way. But I think you just have to, it's almost, you just let him go out there and you hold your breath and hope nothing happens. Because I also think the chances of him taking like those big hits are as likely in the pocket as when he's rolling, because you don't think so? I think his vision's better outside of the pocket, both downfield and
I think he has fantastic focus at keeping his eyes downfield. Sometimes we did see him like just staring down the hot route and missing other routes that became open. That's going to happen. That's just being a quarterback. You can't be perfect. If you were perfect, you'd be Peyton Manning. But yeah, there's going to be misses like that. It's just there was a few too many of those than I prefer in the spring. Again, it's spring, so I'm not going to panic. But it's just something to look at of like, let's not stare down somebody. Like, yeah, I know you like that matchup, but if that matchup doesn't pan out the way you think of when the play starts, you need to see what your other reads are. I just think the big sky is too athletic to not have an immense amount of respect for the edges. Whether it's linebackers coming downhill, whether it's edge players that are just mountains of people that move at ungodly speeds they shouldn't be able to. I just think I want a fearless leader, but I don't want him to play with reckless abandon.
I
Especially when
respect that.
especially when our number, like if we had like Nip and Slaughter, like that was one and a close two. We have one and a distant amount of twos. Like I feel like Caden would be a very good starter, but he hasn't had the time and opportunity to make green player mistakes. Like sure, he's been in the playbook, he knows all that. He's had a limited amount of starting or live reps against other teams. He hasn't had enough time to make stupid throws that were too desperate because you're trying to win the game. He hasn't had let's roll out of the pocket and try to scramble for those 3 yards, which he did very well in the last spring game. This year we didn't really see any runs from him necessarily, but he picked up a gritty like 4th and 7 last year's spring game. So he can run. He is typically a precision thrower, not so much a precision runner, but he can run. So I feel like the coaches put him in a box by saying that. But again, it's a moral dilemma. Do you make your backup try to keep the chemistry, or do you try to change it up entirely and try to catch the defense off guards? If it's not Caden, Gibson is. I don't know. Nobody else throws it like Costelli. And yeah, take your victory lap on that.
Caden Box is the best arm, but then I think Costelli's clearly the second best arm. Would you agree with that?
I will agree with that, and I'll also agree that everybody's arm besides those two scares me. Not even in the sense of I didn't like what they did, is that everybody, except for maybe Lockett, Gavin Lockett, freshman out of Pueblo, again, he's a little small for quarterback. I know he really wants to try out at quarterback and really wants to go for that position. That's fine and dandy. He's also a very good athlete, played very well at safety. I know safety's incredibly deep, but we could probably use him on defense if he doesn't want to redshirt this year. But essentially, everybody else throws some version of a sidearm, and the sidearm is still a good ball, but it limits what you can throw. You can't throw an over-the-top dime as well, because like Costelli, when you see him, he He can arc it over. He has a nice overhand release, albeit the timing sometimes isn't the greatest. I think he's still kind of timing is the one thing that he could work on. But he has a nice arc. He drops it in there. We saw that several times in the spring game where it was over the defender. They had no chance and just right in the numbers, right in the breadbasket. Everybody else has some other version of sidearm, which just comes with too much, not enough height. Saw that, I think it was Luth that had that pass batted down near the goal line. He was trying to throw out to the right, and it just got absolutely spiked down like a Matumbo. So everybody else throwing sidearm scares me. Gibson, very talented runner. I think the other guys can run to a certain degree. Luth, I think, is a more pockety passer type person. I don't know that anybody really is like set and dry pocket passer on our team. Jarrell, I don't think his style was unique enough to really put a label on it. It was just kind of hits and misses that were sidearm variety. I think Luth's speed on the ball was probably second or third best out of the team. But then again, his accuracy was just absolutely scattershot at sometimes. Not trying to shit on these guys. Luth, Durrell, and Gibson, I think, really need to refine their throwing to be able to be considered anything besides just a running threat. Because all those guys have good size. Gibson's isn't listed.
I think he
Durrell,
might be the
6'3",
biggest of
220.
that group, even though I think Gibson might be the biggest or at least the like sturdiest of
Right.
that secondary quarterback group.
Yeah, Luth is 6'4", 225, so they're all roughly a similar size. Caden 6'4", 225, Costelli 6'3", 220, so they definitely have a type. The coaches have a type for sure. Keone
Is not that type.
we've been told is on deck. Rasenko further down the line on deck per
He's
se.
in the hole.
Yeah, he's further down the list than he wants or needs to be. So unfortunately, our Hawaii guys are waiting for a spot to open up. But even so, good guys. They've been around practice and whatnot. So good for them. Lockett, he tried
I'm
really
sure
hard.
he's gonna redshirt. I mean, I don't know anything, but it just feels like because I bet he'll play in 3 or 4 games towards the end of the year, unless we're like in a playoff hunt for some reason. But I bet he ultimately stays under that redshirt threshold. He just feels like a down the line type of guy to me, more so
Yeah,
than a this
I
year.
loved the effort out of him. Like you could just see like he's throwing the ball with all of his might. Like it was just one of those like, oh, I want that to be like a better result for everybody. Like he was trying so hard. So I love how much just it might be blind confidence, but just wild confidence he came in. He was only in on one or two possessions for the spring game. But he was trying his ass off. It wasn't particularly great throws or necessarily productive, but I think he did a really good job of just showing the coaches he's at quarterback and he's trying. He probably is going to end up at a different position for more reps, but he's trying his ass off.
Yeah, he looks like if I only really remember one throw of his from the spring game, and it was a great play call because they had kind of just done a bunch of different runs, like some read options with him and whatever back was in. And then they did a play action where the back just, I think it was shotgun, the back just slipped out of the backfield and he tossed it over to him for like a 25-yard gain. Kind of that. It almost feels like he's the pass is going to be the change of pace, whereas he's going to be primarily a runner. But I agree on the beyond Luth. I don't see 5 through however many really playing a role, but I also don't think I knew who Keone was at this time last year. So I know for a fact I did not know who he was. This is all we can all watch back and laugh in 3 months about this. Ben did know.
I
Ben was
did.
on him. He was
Featured transfer portal athlete, which both of the ones that we did a write up on, or I did, or whatever, both of them got signed somewhere. So, hey, good
Two
job.
for two prospective Bears.
Yeah, one was
But
trying really hard, but was just not on the radar at all. The other one, Keone just he was oh gosh, what's Pursuit of
there's a
Happiness
bit,
almost. Like he was just showing up every day, even though they were kind of like, I think we're good. I think we're good. And I was like, all right, fine. Come on, kid.
but Luth is an interesting one to me because looking at his JUCO numbers, they're like freshman year fine, sophomore year good. 30 touchdowns, 2 interceptions is really good. It not like the most absolute like most yards. I'm just from what I've seen, he hasn't looked like maybe it's a confidence thing after doing that. Maybe he kind of got one FBS offer from NIU and then kind of I don't want to say was humbled, but maybe he's like he's going through a little bit of that. The fact that he was willing to come in, it sounds like he was kind of almost penciled in as a backup, like as the two, just the way Lamb talked about him, at least behind Costelli, which doesn't seem like it's going to be the case. Maybe realistically, he's the three, and that's what scares me. Is they may try three options if Costelli gets hurt, they may go Gibson, then Luth, and then Caden Box, which it just makes me kind of go like that, you know. But he he must have something there. I just haven't quite seen it, and I think you're muted.
Sorry, trying to mitigate crying baby. I think that's also how we understand the depth chart is like as far as what we've taken from different sources. Costelli, Gibson, 1, 2. Probably Luth is a 3. Good sources on Box at 4, and I think Jarrell is probably sitting right there at 5. I don't think we're gonna see anything other than those 5. Like if we see anything other than those 5, whew, boy howdy,
We're
strap
going
the
through it
ship.
again.
Yeah, strap on the life jacket because the ship's going down. No offense to Lockett, like he would be interesting to see as like maybe like a change of pace. Like God forbid we have
Yeah.
a lead type deal of like, oh yeah, like garbage time. We're up by like 17.
God
Throw in
forbid we have a
Lockett.
lead.
Yeah, let's we can throw him in for one drive. It's okay. We won't lose the game off of one drive with 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Like let him throw a couple passes and hope it's not picked. But I think if we see anything outside of those 5, probably not even seeing Darrell. I would think 4 at most, and 4 is accounting for an injury.
Oh yeah, I think 4 is. Yeah, I think we get to 4 with 1. If Costelli goes down, I could realistically see three kind of shots at the next starter.
Yeah, I could see that. I think we're going to
Like
see Costelli consistently, Gibson on trick plays or 2-point conversions. And then like Luth, I haven't seen enough to say that he's going to get time in. Maybe that's who they go to if Costelli goes down because he does have some decent experience in there.
to keep Gibson in like a similar change of pace
Yeah,
quarterback
keep
role.
him
I could
like
see
how
that.
we had like Costelli and Hank, and like Hank was just consistently there even when Keone was in. Well, at least as long as he was healthy.
I think it was Jonah Chong at that point.
Or Chong, my
I
bad.
kind of forget about he gets lost to the tail of last season.
Yeah, he was a roster casualty for sure. But yeah, I don't see Darrell getting time. I hope Caden gets time because we like him and he's a local guy. So I mean, Lamb's all about local guys. Let's get some local guys some local time. But as long as we're winning, that's what the fans need. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting if we had like a Caden come in for maybe just like a change of pace once in a while, just like ooh, like what is he gonna do? It'd be like he's like just the mystery guy that comes in for a couple like set plays, maybe like just a crossing route, and everybody else is running seam routes, and Carver runs for like 30 yards, and that'd be freaking awesome.
There is something to like there must be something missing with Box, because that we're not seeing, or that the coaching staff is seeing, because like just watching that Portland State game last year, I think it was the most the like highest offensive output of the entire season. If not, it was very close. He showed and I think that's kind of what there was no harm last year, I feel, in starting him the last couple games, and I think we saw that at Portland State, where he did make a couple dumb freshman moves, like he tried to scramble in a 2-minute drill, or actually with 8 seconds left, and you could see the minute he crossed the line of scrimmage that he realized he shouldn't have scrambled, because the clock was just going to run out. But on that same note, you saw him extend a play to the right, um, on the scramble, throw it about 30 yards downfield to Garrison, who there were chunk plays that just didn't come from any other quarterback. Costelli, to an yes, that I'm kind of excluding him from this math, because by the end of last season, it was such a Costelli was a distant memory, even coming in for that Eastern Washington game. But something Lamb said on Football 52 that kind of piqued my interest was when Brady asked, what do you look for in practice? And he mentioned, I'm looking for stuff that I can't see on film later. Like when a quarterback calls a play, is he looking the guys in the eyes? He doesn't have to read it off of the wristband, the little stuff like that. And I just wonder if maybe that's where Costelli is, and even maybe Gibbs and Luth are setting him apart, because just watching from the stands, it feels hard to argue that Caden Box isn't at worst the second most impressive quarterback.
See, and shout out Mama Schleiger. I'm going through her. She made me a notepad of stats, because we were actually going through it from some
shout out
some conversations we had with parents and whatnot. There was questions that came up, like, hey, what's the roster going to look like? What's the depth chart going to look like, especially at quarterback? And we're coming down to it, and when we were looking at it, Caden had the best average of yards per attempt. So he had the best average of yards per attempt. Also, he had a big effect on the offensive stats, because everywhere else we were terrible on third down conversions. I believe the Portland State game was actually our best day on third down conversions, where we're 7 of 16. Now that's not good, but that was our best day outside of, I think CSU is the only one that came close to that. So whenever Costelli, I'm not saying Costelli had a fair shot to necessarily get after the season, because I think he went into the season with a nagging groin injury, and then he went down with a separate injury on the other leg, so he might not have ever been fully healthy. But at the same time, when Caden came in, he had the most efficient offense, per se. It wasn't the offense that won the one and only game necessarily, but I think we also have to give credit to the defense for causing 3 turnovers in scoring opportunities for Weber State on that one. So not taking it away from Keone, because he was the only one to actually win a game, but the most effective and efficient quarterback, at least statistically, was Caden in the Portland State game.
Yeah, and I think if you just watched, he was the one that brought the most hope by far, because at a certain point, it feels like the lows are worth the highs when when the offense is just so stagnant, and you it was just I don't even remember what the second to last game was. It might have been NAU, but I can't remember if Eastern Washington was third to last. If only. There's no way of ever finding that information, though. So, but it just it was, man, it was just no hope is kind of how I describe it. Like it was almost I would go we were going to the games obviously, but I didn't expect to feel any good things after those games, you know. Like I knew we were gonna run that RPO 3 times, maybe hand the ball off and then punt. You know, like it never felt like there was an opportunity to for any sort of big chunk plays. And when you nickel and diming is just so hard, especially when you're on your fifth quarterback, that like I think just give it to the guy who can throw the 50-50 ball. Even if like two are two are dropped, one's picked and two are caught, or you know, like one's caught to every or two are caught to every interception. Like I feel like that's a reasonable trade-off at that point, even if it is just for morale of the people who keep coming to the games.
Right. I think also, okay, I'm not going to say it for sure, but I think Portland State was either our first or our second best in first downs. So, because looking at it, like that's something we struggled with was just just getting first downs. We were last by a mile. Like it was dozens of first downs that we were behind 11th place. Um, and in that one we got 16. And I think that was also our best. That was our best ratio throughout the whole season of rushing versus passing first downs, as it was nine rushing first downs versus 7 passing. Because throughout the whole season, it was exclusively rushing was ahead by a lot. I think that was the closest that the consistency ever got.
Yeah, and I agree, and I do think all of this is kind of it being at least I'm saying like knowing that Costelli still feels like the best option as of right now. Um, but I just think I don't know what I guess I don't really know what he has to do to what Caden Box has to do to kind of move up that depth chart. And I'm sure there are more things going into it than we're kind of getting. But it's just and I think a big part of it is style. And it seems like they're very beholden to the running quarterback. And I wonder if part of it was as a gray shirt, Box never really factored into any of Lamb's actual like long-term plans. And then all of a sudden here he is
He's kind of the wrench.
like much better than I think much better much earlier, I would say. Like I cuz even when you first kind of mentioned him 2+ years ago at this point, I was like, okay, well, I imagine I probably won't hear much of that name at least for a few years. And then boom, all of a sudden I'm like, wait, maybe this is our hope. So I wonder if maybe like he came in as like the local kid who maybe after 3 or 4 years in the program would get a chance at like by the time he's a junior or a senior. And the fact that he's doing this so early may just kind of be throwing a wrench into things. But I don't quite know.
Kind of feels like the same general playing path as Keaton Mott. Didn't really expect him to be as good as he was, and he came in and was like, "Oh wow, this is a really good relief guy." Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. Let's close it out with a fun one, kind of like two truths and a lie. Let's do two hopes and one worry for the quarterback position.
Ooh, okay. Okay.
I'll go first if you need some time to stew on it.
How about we alternate? Because I do have one, or
Okay.
I have a hope. Um, I think a hope slash I guess a bold prediction. Um, I think Costelli could be an all conference guy this year. I'm not saying it's likely, but I think it's definitely possible. I think he for sure has the talent.
My hope, which I think could coincide with getting to that, is that we score at least 20 points a game and that we increase our first downs by, I don't know, 8 to 10.
That's I like that.
I think if we're
All
scoring about 20 points a game and we have 8 to 10 more first downs, we're flirting with 500.
I was just gonna say like because 20 points isn't that's probably still like bottom third or fourth of the country, but it would be such a such an improvement from what we've had the last 2 years where we're averaging like 12 that it would feel like we're the fucking 80s SMU just running.
Yeah, ideally we'd kind of peak that, like, what would you call it, the expected minimum of like 24 points, but yeah, if we can creep up towards there, I think that puts us competitive.
Okay. Okay. I don't have like an exact metric, but I want the average throw to be like twice as long as it's been over the past 2 years. Like I like the screen stuff I think is great, especially like it. But if it's all you got, it's not. I don't think it's trivial at that point where it's either like a swing pass or a run play. I think they need to, and I think this would have been the case if Costelli had stayed healthy. They need to throw the ball downfield. I'm fine with if he throws 2 picks a game. I would. I think I could live with that if it meant they were airing it out and taking chances and just pushing the envelope a little bit because while I think at its final form, an Ed Lamb team is like a we don't make mistakes. We're gonna kind of be more disciplined than the other team. But I think maybe in its current form, we could just let's create a little chaos, especially on offense.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that's been said pretty. It's been echoed in the stands quite a bit. Just like,
That
for the
even
love of God, just throw the ball down the field, even if it's picked.
I think you can probably find recordings of on this podcast from Jacob's sermon where I was like, I would rather just throw it 1-on-1 down the sideline 3 times and then punt if we have to, because that's better than what
Mhm.
was going on.
Yeah, no, we saw death by 1,000 screens. That was the 2 years of fraud McCaffrey. So
Well,
we're
the year I'm talking about was your favorite offensive coordinator, Blair Peterson.
yeah. I mean, God, statistically it wasn't better, but it felt better than Max.
Yeah.
Not by a
I
lot, but it was at least not Nepo baby central.
and it at least felt like he wasn't doing a great job, but it at least felt like he had earned that position. He had whatever he had fucking Zach Wilson out here cooking at BYU. So there's something he had something. It just didn't translate.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a good way to put it. My second hope is that, God forbid, Costelli goes down. Uh, let's give Caden a try. Like, he got kind of a shake, like in the last fourth of the season, sort of. Mostly at Portland State. The whole, like, he started the game midway through the season. That was horseshit. That was
That Cal
the whole.
Poly game,
Oh my
he
God, I might go out there and like weep and self immolate myself on the field if we do this, like, switch the quarterback every play type deal.
yeah, and I agree that yeah, he just didn't get a fair shake in that game. And I to an extent I don't I don't think it was right. I get the thinking behind it. Cuz that at the time was like if we're going to win one game this year, it may be this game because they were the only other kind of bottom dweller at the time that felt pretty on UNC's level. But it just especially for a young quarterback that like needs confidence, like that just shaking him in and out of the game. I could, and I think if he just gets like one completion, or maybe he had one, but if he gets like one more completion to get in any sort of a rhythm, things could turn out significantly different there.
Yeah, I think so. I think just if God forbid Costelli's not available for whatever reason, I think put Caden in, give him Gibson as as help, as like whatever running plays you want to do and whatnot, play action, whatever. But like, Caden has just such a crisp throwing motion and whatnot. I feel like that gives our receivers the best chance to shine, because as much as it's cool to have a running quarterback or a quarterback who can sprint out and scramble, we also need to think of our offensive line a little bit. Like, we need to give them some variety, because if they're just run blocking all the time, they're gonna get tired eventually. If they're setting up the same way, they're gonna get beat, and then they're gonna get frustrated because it's like, okay, well, I have to set up this way for the play, but I know that guy's just gonna bull rush me when he comes through. So I think variety is king. even though, we're not necessarily proficient in all the parts on offense. I think for us to be competitive, we have to figure out how to be proficient at all of the parts, even if it's not world breaking. Like having world breaking running ability with our quarterback and our running backs, that's great. But once people figure out that we're running a service style offense, service academy style offense, then that makes us one dimensional. And sure, you can hit a trick play, but you can also just get stuffed every time you try to do something.
So I had my fear, and it kind of plays off of that, but it also kind of is a bit redundant. So I can go, or if you have yours, I can think of something
Now
in
you go and I'll play off of it.
okay. Well, my fear was that Costelli gets hurt, Gibson and then Luth get the rest of the opportunity, and then Caden Box leaves in the December portal. Because I realistically, I think that's kind of, if he doesn't get, I don't even think he needs to like be playing. I feel like he just needs to feel like he got a fair shake. And I can't speak for him right now, but I would understand if he didn't feel that way at the moment. That being said, I have not heard from him that that's how he feels. Like he has not said that to me at all. So that's just kind of my worry, like, and it's just so, it, and it's just so not convoluted, but there's a lot of moving pieces, and there are no super easy decisions in that regard.
Yeah, so mine's going to play off of that, but for a different reason.
Okay.
My worry is oversaturation without a plan. As we have, technically, as it stands, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Technically 9 quarterbacks. We know Hank is not actually a
Oh,
quarterback this year. So there's
yeah, he's
8.
tight end. I don't know if I think that's pretty public at this point, but
Yeah, they need to just change that on there, but it's fine. Semantics, whatever. So we have 8, and we know that 2 are on deck, so theoretically we have 6. Um, you know, Probably not gonna use Lockett, so realistically 5 that might see significant or partial reps this year. But I think our problem is that, you know, if Costelli goes down, I think the chemistry and the identity goes down because Costelli, not picking on him to any degree, but he's very very cherry picked as a starter. It's like this is our starter. We're gonna mold around this. Our whole, if we're making a puzzle, he's the centerpiece of the puzzle, and we're gonna build the puzzle out from him. If for some reason those pieces go missing or whatnot, then the rest of your puzzle doesn't make sense. So I think that's my worry is if Costelli goes down, we don't have an identity as the offense. Can that be remedied by somebody coming in and playing well, regardless of who it is? Yes. But then we're going to have to adapt to that. And if Costelli comes back, they're going to have to readapt the puzzle. And, it all depends on how flexible and how pliable people are. Because, you get set in a certain way and you're like, oh, well, I don't want to do it different because, Costelli's coming back in 2 weeks. Okay, well, does that rigidness take us out of a game because we're like, well, I blocked the way that he would have wanted me to block, but that let somebody through. And it's like, I think there's just a very dense saturation at quarterback, and it's just, especially for those on deck guys. I worry about Keone. We like him. He was a fun interview. He took us to our only win of the Lamb era. If he doesn't make the cut necessarily, that's a sad deal. But also like we need to win. We need to win more than once. So I just worry we might the coaches might have set us up a little bit with whoever was in charge of saying yes to this many quarterbacks. I think they kind of set us up for um, just drama and misdirection a little bit because it not necessarily drama, but just too many moving variables. Like if we have 3 guys to work with, sure that's probably too little, but like okay, if this guy's not going in, then we know we got this guy. that guy's not going, or he plays like shit, we got this guy. 4 even. 4, you can play around with 4. 6, 8, 9, it's too much. It's confusing and disjointed.
I think that's actually like a perfect thing to end on, because it kind of ties back into a couple of our bigger qualms last year. Uh, I think part of it is kind of what were some of these guys told coming in, because I think that makes a big difference.
And
And
also,
then
just as a preface, I know that we have to stockpile some positions because transfer portal can clean you out, but at the same time, like it's messy at a leadership position like quarter.
yeah, and you need a defined hierarchy at quarterback for sure. Like, and with what we saw last year, both with how things played out after Costelli got hurt and in the running back room, quite frankly, I could see there being like exactly what you're saying. There's oversaturation, and they maybe you have 4 good options, but if you have 4 good options, you kind of have no good options. Like,
Yeah, and I think 5. We used at least 5 at each position, and two
you
and a
shouldn't do
half of
that at
them worked
quarterback
out
in
really.
theory.
Yeah, so it was like sure we did have to use that many last year, but only so many of them were a good fit or a good choice.
Yeah, and you want to be flexible too, but like some of the shifting, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth here, because earlier I was like, I think it would have made more sense to go to box at the towards the end of the year, but some of the frequent shifting in quarterbacks were almost, if they felt like a little bit of panic moves, which when you're have the record they had, I do get it, because there is a need to win. There is like that need to win, and but also there's Lamb seems pretty secure in his position. He just got a 2-year extension after going 1 in 22, 23, whatever the exact number is. But
It
it
seemed
so
more like Madden moves rather than realistic moves.
that's actually a surprisingly
It's like you set
concise
the
way to sum it up.
yeah,
Yeah.
you set the sub rate to 90 instead of like 55.
It's like it's me when I'm like, this quarterback sucks. He's thrown 3 interceptions, though I pressed the button that made him throw it. So I'm like, I'm gonna switch guys out. This will be better. It is kind of. I think that's a great analogy. And it's tough because you do want to be flexible, but I think you kind of need to like. I think the guys need to know at least by week 1, like, if he goes down, this is our plan. This is, and I get they post. I think Lamb's talked about like just posting the depth chart, which makes at quarterback it's different though, because if Hank's technically the backup quarterback, but if Costelli gets hurt, Jonah Chong's now the starting quarterback. It's like, I think they need to know exactly kind of what they're looking at, and and that can lead to people not liking it. That can lead to a bunch of, this was, why is he your favorite?
I
But I
almost
think it's
wonder if Chong was maybe not the first choice or maybe not the overall second quarter. Well, because Hank, but okay, we get past Hank. Hank gets hurt, whatever. But we get to Chong, and it's like I wonder if Chong wasn't necessarily third overall as like third best, but it was like the coaches are like, well, this is who we're playing, so we're going to choose this guy because of this, even though he wasn't maybe the most ready. Like he should have been because he had 4 freaking years of FBS practice squad, but like, you know, sometimes no matter how
which
hard you
is
prepare, it's
kind
not the
of
same.
hilarious, because from everything I heard and saw, he looked like a great practice quarterback. So he's just in his element, like just diamond defenses during practice, and then bright lights. And actually, completely different topic. D Wade was on a podcast, Dwayne Wade, earlier, and he was like, there were guys who would cook me in practice, and then I'd get out to games, and I'm like, where's my help? What are you doing? Like, who are you? So I could see like that being a thing. Just being the gamer versus kind of the other type of guy. But you know what, Ben? I think you were right. This was a little less adversarial than I thought. I was ready to come in, maybe pull out some personal stuff if I had to, just to to win an argument here, but I think we got away with it, just under an hour. That's probably pretty good. Is there anything else you want to get off your mind before we sign out here and let you go be a dad?
No, I think we've shellacked quarterbacks pretty well. We really turned over every possible stone we could, and hopefully the coaches are going to do the same. When the season comes down to it, is just you don't want to have a backup plan, and it seems like you're almost expecting something to go wrong at that point. But a better backup plan than last year, I think, would quell a lot of the fans' rowdiness and Tomato wanting the throwing at coach.
No, 1,000,000%. And yeah, I'm excited. Overall, though, I am excited. I think the quarterback room does have a chance to be a strength, which would be such a welcome change from the past. I think it was probably a strength 2 years ago, but the offensive line was such a weakness. There was nothing to be done. But it's we'll have some more of these coming. What's that? One of about 8 or 9 position groups we're doing. So we got our work cut out of us trying to plan some time to take care of these. But as always, thank you for watching. We always appreciate it, and have a good one.